We in here for episode 9. I'm just going to start by plugging our podcast merch. Y'all learned something about me in episode 5, and that's that I like to live a more analog lifestyle. I'm not quite fully invested in a digital lifestyle. My marketing style is more grassroots. Social media isn't like it used to be where you can gain a following if you have a good quality product. With these big social media sites, it's about beating the algorithm, and I'm just not there yet. One day I'll try the socials or I'll let my daughter do it. But I finally got wise enough to include the link in this episode description as well as the podcast bio for merch just to make it easier for y'all to find. So check that out. See if you see something you like. If not, email me. Tell me other items you want to see in our shop. For anybody out there who is, as we like to say down south, hard-headed and can't find our email in the description, we can be reached at info@blackgirlstruecrime.com. I hope everybody had a good week. My week was cute. I tried to get tickets for a sold out Leon Thomas concert by going to the box office. He was performing so local to my house, but I was unsuccessful. I basically asked the ticketing agent if there was a time I could come back, like after the concert started, where I would be more likely to get in. And he didn't even say no. He just shook his head, like, not me trying to get into the concert on standby. So if you have been able to see Leon Thomas, I love that for you. Hopefully I can see him before his tour ends. Anyways, let's get into why y'all are here today. This should have been episode 1 of this podcast because I really forgot how close I could have come to death. I hope my friend Mo is listening because I can feel her facial reactions through this microphone. This episode is really for her because she is my friend who I regularly exchange discourse with regarding true crime and documentary cases. And I know she probably thinking like, Bish, how come we've never discussed this? Her and I are both moms and wives, so we really connect on that level in some of these stories. For example, the case of Sherry Papini. For those of you who are not familiar, Sherry Papini is the mother of 2 who disappeared a couple years ago. About a month later, it could have been 3 weeks, she returned home and she claimed she was abducted. But after police investigated, they determined she was lying. It was all a hoax. Y'all, Sherry Papini was holed up at her ex-boyfriend's house. She came home because she missed her kids. So our conversations usually go something like, yeah, what she did is crazy, but I feel her. So I can't wait to debrief with her after this episode. Additionally, she has a really great product out right now called Sage Sea Moss. It's a nutrient-dense gel you can eat, you can put on your skin, all in one, really pure, really great for you. So I have her website linked up in the bio as well, sagescmoss.com. Back to the CRIME. Today, we're going to be talking about a case that I have close proximity to, y'all. This is the case of Dr. Amy Bishop. She was a professor of mine in college, and I struggled in her class, so I used to regularly sit with her during her office hours to discuss how to bring my grade up. I also went to high school with her daughter, and her and I had some science classes together. She attended the same college as me, so I used to see her around campus, and we would chat because her mom was my teacher. I remember being surprised to see her because she was a year younger than me. So she should have still been in high school at the time. And she basically told me high school was too boring for her and she needed a challenge. So she dropped out and got her GED so she could start taking college courses. Dr. Bishop's son, who was in grade school at the time, also went to a school that my boss's children attended. They would put on theater shows. So I used to see her at the school often, and I would always go speak to her because that's just the type of student I was. I was always trying to have visibility with my professors in case I wasn't doing well in the class. So that's just a summary of how much I interacted with this individual and her family the year that this took place. I was actually on location the morning of the shooting. Yeah, let that sink in. At the time, I was still a teenager, so I didn't understand the severity of what had happened. And to be honest, even as an adult, I didn't understand how serious this was until I started reviewing official court documents for this episode. I returned to the building like business as usual, and knowing what I know now, I should have been way more cautious to re-enter the building. So let's start with the timeline, except I'm going to include my movements that day as well as part of the story. I went to class that morning. This could have been around 9 a.m. It was H&P 1, so that's human anatomy and physiology. Dr. Bishop taught my class that morning, and I never went to this class, honestly, because I didn't learn in her class. So the decision to go to class was random for me. And it was a normal day of teaching for her. And when I say normal, she was always kind of an oddball personality. So normal is relative. The one thing that happened that class that was out of the ordinary was that during the middle of class, she just packed up her bag and left. She was carrying maybe like a brown or leather tote or satchel, and it was so abrupt that we as a class were very confused. Everybody was just looking around like, is class over? So for me, I was meeting my friends, and I was like, you ain't got to tell me twice. If class is over, it's over. I'm out. So I quickly followed suit and went to meet my friends. Later that afternoon, Dr. Bishop went to a scheduled department faculty meeting in the same building, the Shelby Science Center, and approximately 30 to 40 minutes into the meeting, as they were wrapping up, she pulls out a handgun and started shooting at faculty members, starting with the department chair who was sitting closest to her. She was shooting people in a row around the conference table. One shot, two shots, three shots, four shots, five shots, six shots, and then a click as her colleague pleaded with her to think of her children. So that click was the gun jamming. And when that happened, some of the faculty members were able to get Dr. Bishop out of the conference room and barricade the door. She then went to a bathroom in the building to wash her hands and dispose of the gun. She exited the bathroom and went into a lab where some people were working. Remember, this was a science building. She asked to use someone's phone to call her husband and tell him she was done and ready to be picked up. Shortly after, she exited the building and she was apprehended by police as her husband was pulling up. So, yeah, she didn't make it very far. She was also reportedly repeating this didn't happen and initially denied that the incident had occurred as if she had amnesia. At some point, I'm not sure if this was before or after she was apprehended, I very naively went back to campus looking for my boyfriend at the time because I was calling and he wasn't answering and I knew he was in class. At this point, we hadn't received official notification that something had occurred on campus. It was just word of mouth that there was a shooting and no students were injured. I remember passing the Shelby Science Center and seeing the large police presence. I pulled up to the building where his car was parked, and he literally answered the phone and came out at the same time I was pulling up. Y'all, he had no idea what had happened. He was taking a test, and no one, including the faculty in that building, had gotten wind of the melee. So he just completed his test like it was a normal day. An independent review was done after this to determine gaps in the university's safety response. The first 911 call came in at 3:57 p.m. and the police were on site by 4. So 3 minutes, that was pretty quick. Shout out to HPD because things like this didn't happen in our town. They could have easily been unprepared because of that and dropped the ball. Additionally, as I mentioned, we didn't get official communication for this incident until after 5 p.m. The independent review noted that there were only 2 individuals on campus who have the authority to activate the panic button, so to speak. And those individuals were responding to the crisis at the time. So that was an issue as well. I think another thing that was really upsetting to the community were that the fatalities consisted of all BIPOC educators. We were already a small Black student body, so it was particularly disheartening to hear that Dr. Maria Ragland Davis and Dr. Adriel Johnson were killed. We looked up to them as mentors and as Black pioneers in their field. So these were just incredibly bright lights that were snuffed out. To us, it felt like a teacher who seemingly got to where she was, not on her own merit, killed 3 professionals who not only got in their positions based on their own merits, but faced adversity to do it as minorities in their field. The entitlement she felt over getting the tenure created this elated sense of self that resulted in her violence. There was actually a lawsuit that named the provost at the time, Vistat Kabari, versus the estate of Dr. Davis and Dr. Johnson because they felt this could have been avoided if Dr. Bishop was properly vetted in the first place. At that time, there wasn't a background check process at UAH, and now there is. But unfortunately, her history would not have come up on the background check anyways because she was never charged with anything. This lawsuit was dismissed, then appealed to the higher court, and the ruling was upheld. And listen, I have mixed emotions regarding this because even though Amy Bishop is in jail, you want everyone held accountable. Their argument against Kabari was that there were warning signs that someone in his position should have noticed regarding the threat of Dr. Bishop and her mental state, and it should have been addressed. There were specific instances in which Mr. Kabari and President Williams had requested security escorts from the building when they were advised by another faculty that Dr. Bishop was on her way to their office regarding her tenure denial. Also, she was eventually banned from entering that building because she was repeatedly calling and harassing the administrative offices. The lawsuit argued that this proves leadership was afraid of her and didn't warn other staff so that they could protect themselves. Amy Bishop herself even reported, because she and her husband were named in the lawsuit, that she advised the provost that she was suicidal and it was taken lightly. Now, obviously, the president and provost office denied these claims, and he even noted that he asked a faculty member who's known to be close to Amy and someone who she regularly confided in if her threats should be taken seriously, to which this faculty member told him no. So, the provost is not a clinician who is trained in mental health assessment to that extent. And this was his argument, that there was no way he could have known. He took the word of a trusted faculty member. But as the family of the educators who lost their lives, I understand the frustration. I am frustrated for them. Vistabs Kabari went on to become the president at the University of Texas in Arlington. So he went about his life and was even promoted in his position. And I'm not even saying he didn't deserve to, but there is an expectation of leadership that feels like the captains abandoned the ship, especially knowing they had more insight into her mental state. You had enough foresight to ask someone, hey, is this person stable or unstable? Okay, fine. The person confirmed that she was stable, but obviously that didn't turn out to be true. Needless to say, there was a lot of PTSD felt on the campus, probably more by the faculty than the student body. I remember my lab instructor stepping up to teach my H&P class, and I really remember returning to campus like nothing happened, and normalcy was probably the goal of the university. Amy Bishop's daughter attended the university before all this happened, and she remained on campus after. I won't name her to keep her identity anonymous. I'm not sure if she completed her degree there, but I do remember seeing her around campus after the shooting. And because we went to high school with her, we knew who she was. It made my best friend Shayla very uncomfortable to see her on campus. At the time, I tried to rationalize with my friend that they're two different people. We can't punish her for sins of the mother. And I still do believe that, but this goes back to the history and warning signs. In high school, her daughter used to have outbursts over small things. And there are little details over time that paint a bigger picture of someone's mental health and their emotional state. My guard should have been up, like Shayla's. I was also surprised to learn that a lot of the faculty stayed in their positions, even the ones who were in the conference room during the shooting. I kept thinking, if it were me, I would never go back because of how traumatizing this was. It made me feel a way that UAH didn't retire these individuals because I'm sure they could afford it. But in a sense, I have a lot of respect for the faculty that stayed because they didn't let Dr. Bishop win. That move allowed them to keep their power in all this. And I think that's commendable. And I ain't going to say this is about race, but it's definitely about privilege. And somebody along the way let the community down and let Dr. Bishop down by not holding her accountable over the years. After the UAH shooting, of course, all this digging into her past happens, and we find that when Amy was a teenager, her brother, who was 18 at the time, was shot and killed in their kitchen by Amy. This happened in Braintree, Massachusetts, and Amy was 19 at the time. It was ruled accidental because this is what her mother, who was in the kitchen as well when the incident happened, told the police. She stated that Amy came downstairs asking for help with a gun and it misfired, killing Seth Bishop. So she was released to her parents, and many people in the police department had an issue with this, but reported the order to release came from a superior officer. And I'm giving y'all a very cookie cutter summary, but there were things that happened before and after that paints the accidental argument gray. Prior to the shooting, Amy fired a round in her room. This was discovered by a hole in the wall that she tried to cover up. She claimed she tried to cover it up because she didn't want to get in trouble by her mother, but investigators were suspicious. I did a lot of stupid things when I was younger, but I never played with firearms. There's also a lot of things that happened after her brother was killed that raised suspicions of law enforcement. Number one, Amy ran. She ran out the house. They had to find her. They found her nearby behind a building. At the time that they found her, she held the gun to the police and she was demanding a car. She was demanding money to get away. And they were finally able to apprehend her. When they spoke to her, The conversation was that she had had an argument with her father. Amy reported this. Her father reported this in his police affidavit, and also her mother. So that argument was significant enough for all three of the family members to mention it. While the gun may have misfired, your actions before and after are not consistent with an accident. And the police report also noted that she was released because of her extreme emotional state. They weren't even able to question her the day that they apprehended her because of what had happened. In all these documents, Amy never faced any punishment for the death of her brother. And I'm not even saying punishment is what she deserved, but just some accountability. In all these documents, these court documents, everything that I've read, I have not read in one place where she has ever been evaluated by a psychiatrist or had any psychiatric help, therapy. So you kill your brother and then again, you just go back to living your life. That is trauma. That can cause underlying issues with people that resurface later in life, as it did in this case. Additionally, in 1993, Amy Bishop and her husband were also suspects in a federal investigation regarding a pipe bomb that was mailed to the house of one of Amy's colleagues. So I read this document, all 136 pages from the ATF, and they didn't have enough evidence to charge Amy and her husband. However, they had the motive, they had the means, they had the opportunity. Both of them being scientists, they had a working knowledge of chemicals and engineering. From my understanding, they had the materials that are used to build a pipe bomb. They just didn't have the materials that matched the pipe bomb that was delivered to this particular faculty member. So I would imagine their intelligence enough to cover their tracks. But there were a lot of chemicals in their home that are not in a normal person's home. So these are just examples of just kind of like this escalating history of violence and really being out of touch with reality. But again, never charged, no accountability held. She moved across the country, and reportedly because the particular faculty that received the package had been vocal about him not feeling like Amy Bishop was suited for the position that she was in and for the work that she had to do. So there is a lot when it comes to what her motive was. And before I started investigating this case, I'm going to be honest, I did think it was one thing. And that one thing was the tenure denial. This was something that was told to us as students on the campus and also what was being circulated in the media. And after reading all the documents, all the affidavits, even her words herself, my understanding of it is that the tenure denial was a catalyst, but there are so many other layers of just underlying mental health problems. And over time, she just became unhinged. And it's unfortunate. I don't want to use the word empathetic because I'm empathetic for the victims. I'm empathetic for the people that were killed, the families, and the people that were in the room at the time that have to deal with that PTSD for their lives. Amy Bishop, for me, is exactly where she belongs, regardless of if it was an insanity defense. She's dangerous, period. But I did read it with a clinician's eyes, and I do have a different understanding. Amy Bishop was failed as well. She was not given the proper treatment that she needed, and she was spiraling. I know that there was a student petition as well. I do remember her teaching style was difficult to learn from. So I could understand how a combination of all these things as a result can drive her to do what she did. She didn't play well with others, and it didn't seem like she was well liked. So I do believe from reading her words and just having a better understanding of the situation that this could have been a dissociative event. That, yeah, she's insane and she's definitely out her right mind. But also, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that she was able to have this out of body experience and kill people because she's reactionary. Because all this happened and all these past crimes came to light, they were looking into charging her with her brother's murder. But the Massachusetts law enforcement decided not to because they don't have the death penalty. And she would have received the same sentence there that she had already got, which was life in prison. She acknowledged what she did, but also acknowledged that she didn't recognize the person that did this. And so where we are today with this case, recently, and when I say recently, within the last 5 years, Dr. Bishop has tried to appeal her case to the Supreme Court. It's been denied. She was saying she didn't get proper counsel. She was supposed to have some type of neuropsychiatrist testify on her behalf to speak to the underlying medical issue and steroid induced psychosis that she experienced. She was having really bad allergies. And because of that, she was taking a lot of medications, taking a lot of steroids, and somehow that contributed to this act. So, again, like I said, coming from a clinical standpoint, definitely mental health, mental health, mental health. I can't say this enough. Whenever somebody goes and commits murder, the insanity defense is so crazy because to me that's implied. Like, if you go kill somebody, you're insane. Unless it's a true act of self-defense, everybody who is on trial for murder is insane. But unfortunately, mental health is not something that we can quantify. Dr. Joseph Ng, who was in the conference room at the time of the incident, had developed technology recently related to PTSD and really being able to tell if somebody has a proclivity to violence based on inflammatory markers and past trauma. So I hope science can help prevent things like this. Much respect to the professors and faculty and staff and everybody that had to witness that. I just wish the best for the victims. And honestly, I just hope we grow from this, we learn from this, and in the future, find peace in all of this. Ironically, Dr. Bishop's son, who was named after her brother that she killed, was also killed due to an accidental shooting at the same age that her brother was killed. I won't say karma because I don't think anybody deserves that, but just a lot of tragedy, a lot of trauma within her family. And I just hope everybody gets what they need. Anyways, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, you guys, today. I'm Lauren. I'm sounding out.